My name's Matt Clark, one of the artists at Conduit. I'm happy to be here and honored to interview Justin Quinn, way up north in Minneapolis. He wearing a big overshirt. I'm wearing a t-shirt, probably shorts weather outside. So honored to be interviewing. How are you doing, Justin? What are you up to up there?
Thanks a lot for doing this, Matt. Thanks, Jeff and Nancy and Danette. This is a pretty cool thing to do, and we're all kind of getting a little stir crazy. Yeah, so I've got you might see behind me. I've got my fake screen. The ice just went out on the lake last weekend, so it went from a gray lake to a really ice blue lake. And in quarantine with my family. I've got 3 kids and a wife of 25 years, and we have been hanging out in our little home. And I've been using this as my main studio space too. So
I've always been interested in really trying to look into your work, because one thing for me that I think we share is this idea of process, and maybe discovery through process.
Yeah.
But at the same time, allowing the viewer to uncover or see the process throughout. So maybe you can talk about those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we are pretty close in that. I think it's really important for the viewer to finish the work. I think if the viewer isn't invested in it, if the viewer isn't making the discoveries, I think something's lost. I think work should always just be able to be unpeeled a little bit. So me as a viewer, when I'm looking at work, I feel like I'm a part of it when I'm uncovering that stuff. But really, I think if there's one way that I work that I really feel comfortable with, that I really feel is important, is this, like you had mentioned, this idea of starting on the edge of something and then moving slowly toward the middle. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because of there's a lot of unknown allowed in that, where each mark calls for another mark as it moves and marches towards the middle. But also when these forms are getting bigger and getting created, they have to negotiate the space in the middle. There's only so much space that they have. So it's always a trick to try to figure out how this stuff ends. You know this, right? Like, how do you know when work is done?
There's also this, this sense of materiality in your work. You've changed the sense of materiality, but there's still this construction and collage. So maybe you can talk about that history of collage and that sense of materiality, and say maybe some of those notions of age or decay that come with that.
For years and years and years, I've been working with these mountains or these ziggurats as kind of a side project to the Moby Dick work. And I think in some ways this thread is it's the strongest and longest maybe thread that I have in my work. And these pieces come from it's such a messed up process. It comes from sketchbooks where I'm working in a line and just almost writing across the outside perimeter. Then as the works come in, they become more and more these kind of ziggurat forms. So they're kind of words, but they're also time. How long can I keep this motion going, right? What about the spaces in between? What are these cracks? What are these I guess the non-spaces, right? Mm-hmm. So these drawings then, I turned into a woodcut. I scanned them in, and I used a cutter, like a computer cutter, to cut out these forms. And then I used paper and rubbed on them with charcoal or a very soft graphite. So what ends up happening is, when I'm looking at this, is these ziggurats or these forms or these mountains, whatever they are, they're empty, but they're kind of everything. They're ruins, and they build in towards the center. But because it's a 2-sided piece, I think I can do this.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So this is on the back.
this is the backside of it.
Wow.
So one in one part of collage, to me, it's so material based that I'm often trying to work on a balance between a really kind of beautiful, elegant gesture and something that is kind of rough and quick. And it's this I'm this dichotomy I'm working on constantly. So the way that these are made is they're actually incised into the piece. So looking again at the front,
Mhm.
the main piece of paper is orange, largely orange.
Right.
And then there are four lighter pieces of paper that are collaged inside, but they're not collaged on top. The shape has been cut out through both sheets. And then let me see if I can zoom in.
And you taped it together.
Yeah, it's like a paper, it's like a homemade paper tape that goes on the back.
And that in and of itself is a beautiful, these beautiful forms emerge that
Yeah.
with the underpinning and, composition of the piece on front.
Yeah. And when I showed
Talk
this
about those
recently,
dichotomies. This is a beautiful instance of it.
yeah, and when I showed this recently at the High Poise Center for Printmaking in Minneapolis, I showed this side out, and I had it unframed and just using spacers away from the wall so that the orange on the back of the paper made an orange glow on the wall itself behind this really quiet piece that you can just barely see the information coming through on these Asian papers.
Wow.
In what's more, Matt, is in the inside, you might be able to see this reflected silver. And I
Mm-hmm.
got another kind of a companion piece to this here. Bear with me. That silver, going the wrong way. That silver is eventually going to oxidize and change and turn black.
Wow.
So the fact for me, it's got kind of a magical property. Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
It's got this magical property to it that is already in this piece starting to oxidize, starting to turn oranges and purples, but it'll eventually turn black. So it's always changing. And I think, I'm getting older, I'm aging, I'm kind of falling apart, and the work does too. And I think that there's a poetry in that. Yeah.
So there's when I'm just seeing these, obviously I don't get to see it in person, but what you got too from some of your Moby Dick series was this fragility.
Yeah.
And I think you're really putting words to that notion that I see when you're show me the back of the piece and talk about this history of it and things falling apart, just like us as we age, this sense of fragility.
Yeah.
Has that always been something that you've thought about?
Yeah. I think,
Or has it come as we,
no,
get older in age, does it come?
I've always thought about this. When I was in my 20s, I always, do you ever have those feelings where you're wondering, if I meet my future self, would we get along, right? Or just I think my brain naturally goes into kind of philosophical meanderings, and I do question permanence in general, and I question time. I question a lot of these things, and so the fact that something is not static is really exciting to me, and I think it's much more human. Another thing is too, we live. I think people kind of. I think I live in a time where people fetishize things being done slickly and correctly, and now and youth and perfection and all these things. And I don't know if that's really the most. I think the most human things are our failures and our how we fall apart. And again, it's that line between having this kind of elegance and this kind of roughness, and that space in between is very, very human. I feel like really what we're doing is the same thing that human beings have been doing for millennia, right? From going into a cave and trying to make some kind of a mark on the wall that means something.
Yeah.
And we're trying to do something that isn't captured in words, and you're trying to do something that does have this energy to it. And every time you make a work, you're trying to make the best, you're trying to you're trying to level up and make the best thing you can. It's such a, I don't know, it's interesting to try to see yourself on that whole trajectory of time.
And more relevant today than ever,
Maybe, I think you're right.
I think we're all, whether we realize it or not, responding to this curveball, this shift. And
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see how we react and what we see and what we communicate through these visual means, again, that don't have a written language to it. It's
Yeah.
feeling.
Otherwise,
Maybe that's a great ending. I so appreciate you asking me to do this, and what fun. I wish we could do this more often, because this is a great way to bring some of us together that don't get to see one another,
Yeah.
and maybe learn more about one another's practice. So thanks for thinking of me. It's been an honor.
Thanks, Matt. Hold on one sec. I'm just going to stop this recording.